Welcome everyone to the DBSA Peer Leadership Center webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded, so all participants will be muted throughout the presentation. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to submit a question via the chat box that's in the computer webinar system. If there's time at the end, we'll do a Q&A. The DBSA Peer Leadership Center is so pleased to have Donna Dykstra from LiveForward presenting The Road to Recovery, Melding Physical and Mental Wellness. Donna Dykstra is the owner of a consulting and training business, an athlete, a dog trainer, a wife, and a peer in recovery. She is a Washington State Certified Peer Counselor and a DBSA, the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, Certified Peer Specialist. Donna has worked as a trainer and speaker for over 30 years, including a decade of providing peer specialist trainings around the country. She has been a peer supporter with individuals and in group settings and has participated as a staff member and consultant in research projects studying the effectiveness of peer support. From her own lived experience, she's discovered the power of physical wellness in mental health wellness and recovery and the importance of holistic approaches. Donna is a longtime colleague and friend to all of us who work for and with DBSA. I'm so pleased to introduce you to today's presenter, my dear friend, Donna Dykstra.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm really pleased that you're spending your time listening to this morning, and I do hope you'll have some questions at the end of this. As a person in recovery and as a peer supporter, I learned that judiciously using our story at different times can really be motivating, and indeed it's kind of the core foundation piece of what it means to be a peer supporter. So I spend a lot of time with using my wellness plan, my recovery action plan, taking a look at how I'm doing, what's helping me to stay well, what do I do every day, where am I making progress, what things do I need to do. And over the last 6 or 7 years, I started noticing a really fascinating trend. I discovered in my own life that as I was starting to move my body more, to become more active, I was then setting goals about how to move my body even more. And as I did that, I came to recognize that setting goals in my physical activity was really contributing to my mental wellness as well. And indeed, if you look at the research, the studies, the popular literature, what we see in the news, we hear all the time about the value of lifestyle and being active and watching what it is that we eat and making good nutritional choices. So it all made sense, but it took me a while to really integrate what that meant and how to do it. I started working out in a more organized fashion, and I also discovered something really fascinating, and maybe you've discovered this too, and that is among my fellow athletes at the gym, many people were using physical workouts, intense physical workouts, as a way of coping with some stresses and traumas in their own lives. So I thought a lot about that too and what it meant. And then as somebody who's had the honor to train others to become peer supporters, and in that process I've traveled around and met literally hundreds of people becoming peer supporters, I kept hearing an interesting theme when we would do some of the role plays in the peer support training. And that theme was people would say, I want to be more active. I want to move my body. And they would then identify lots and lots of barriers to doing that. And they would really want to talk about how to overcome those barriers. So my friends with LiveForward and I have been thinking for a while now about what does this mean and how do we integrate that. LiveForward is a support group comprised of people in recovery who, among other things, maintain our recovery through social connectedness and mutual peer support, and in particular around the whole idea of getting our bodies moving and staying more active. So that's what I'm here to talk about today is recovery, being more active, and oh my gosh, how do we accomplish that? Because there's a whole lot of barriers that can get in the way. So today I'm going to share with you some of the stories of people I have met in my journey who themselves are all in recovery and who have integrated successfully physical activity as part of their wellness plan. And they feel as if their physical activity has substantially improved their mental wellness as well. What I want to do first, though, is just kind of go over a little bit about what wellness and recovery are and some of the stages of recovery. I've been talking about these things for many years as part of the training that I was doing, and it was interesting because when I started discovering how powerful physical wellness was, and then I went back and revisited these definitions that may be familiar to you already, I realized that they already talked about the power of physical wellness. It's just, at least for me, I hadn't been figuring out how to do it. If we use SAMHSA's working definition of recovery, we talk about it being a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness. And they live a self-directed life, and they strive to reach their full potential. I think key in that definition is living a self-directed life. How many times did I go to the doctor and talk about I'm gaining weight as a side effect of this medication? I keep gaining weight. Doc, I've gained 10 pounds. Doc, I've gained 20, 30, 40, 50. And it seemed like the doctor was pretty dismissive and would say, well, just go for walks every day. Or, well, eat less. Push yourself away from the table. And that's lovely, but that was their goal for me. I didn't own the goal, and it also didn't feel very supportive. So it wasn't happening for a long time. So another definition used with permission by Appalachian Consulting Group, and it's also used in the DBSA peer specialist training, talks about recovery being the process of gaining control over one's life. And when I look at that now with a slightly different perspective, I look at it also as gaining control over ways that I used to nourish my body versus how I physically nourish my body these days. I used to really struggle with eating large quantities of salty, fatty, sugary food. And it just felt like I couldn't get a handle on it. I wasn't getting control of it. And some of that was just one way of self-medicating my psychiatric diagnosis. And some of it was a way of responding to the side effects of my medications. I craved food. I really craved food. When we take a look again at SAMHSA's working definition of recovery, it talks about things like hope, which is so powerful, believing that recovery is possible. And of course, part of that is where we as peer supporters come in as mentors, as role models, that yes, recovery can happen. And we talk about the fact that there are many pathways. We talk about it being holistic. And as I've learned and grown over time, I've come to see that holistic includes a lot of lifestyle approaches as well. Peer support. I am, of course, an avid believer in peer support. And one of the things that LiveForward offers is that mutual peer support around getting our bodies active and moving and nourishing them in a way that helps us to stay healthy. I know there are lots of people out there who somehow seem to magically, all by themselves, be able to motivate themselves every day and get up and go running all by themselves, or go to the gym and work out all by themselves. That's terrific. I don't know how they do it, but it's wonderful. But that's not something that has worked for me. And LiveForward has been a way of getting that mutual peer support and also a sense of accountability, because I share my dreams and my goals with my fellow athletes. So peer support is just so powerful, as we know, in recovery. We talk too about recovery being relational, and one big part of LiveForward is the relationships that we form. We actually have a monthly support group where we sit down and listen and share and support with each other. But in addition to that, on a regular basis, we exchange messages, emails, Facebook posts, Instagram pictures, phone calls. Sometimes we see each other working out at the gym, and there are so many times when usually at the end of a workout, somebody will approach me and we'll sit down and we'll exchange peer support with one another around issues they're facing, around struggles they're having. And for me also, I'm able to reach out around some issues that I'm having as well. Here's another picture, again, courtesy of SAMHSA, that looks at wellness. And once I started looking at things through the lens of physical wellness, I saw more and more in these graphics things that I'd kind of glossed over before as part of our wellness. So there's certainly the emotional part, but I think that the physical part and the emotional part are inextricably linked. I think that the more emotionally you are well, the better you're able to be physical and be moving, and the more physically you are well, the stronger you're going to be emotionally. And of course, there in that picture again is social. And as I said, LiveForward is about social connectedness and getting moving and moving our bodies and setting physical wellness goals. I'm impressed by people who can accomplish those things without the social interconnectedness. I know there's a large group, or at least a significant group of the population who can do that, but I think there's also a significant group who does better when we have the support of other people in our lives. Hope. Okay? We have to have hope. Many of us, before we begin our recovery journey, we don't have hope. Our lives may have come crashing down around us. We may have come to believe that there's not a lot to look forward to in our lives. We may think that we simply cannot do things. Well, we certainly can, and you and I, as peer supporters, are walking, talking evidence of that. We're living proof, and so our presence and the power of our involvement as peer supporters includes helping people to feel hope that recovery is possible. In physical wellness, also, we have members of our support group, our LiveForward group, who range in age anywhere from 20 up through late 70s. And all of us, we have our stories of emotional recovery that we share with each other, but it's pretty impressive when a 77-year-old is out there sharing a workout alongside a 20-year-old, and they're exchanging that peer support. So I know that a lot of people who join us, those of us who are face-to-face in our gym, a lot of people are amazed when they find there are other people working out there who maybe are at a point where walking is what's very strenuous for them. And so jogging, not so much. The idea of doing a push-up might be beyond them. But you look around and you see some other people who are similarly at the same point. And then other athletes can share stories about, yes, there was a time in my life when I was at that point. So peers serve as role models and give hope to the possibility that recovery is possible. Another huge part of recovery is setting and achieving goals yourself, and those help you to move forward in your recovery. You know how good it feels when you set yourself a goal of, I'm going to get up and take a shower twice a week, and then you accomplish it. Or the goal of, I'm going to eat a nutritious breakfast once a week. And then you have that morning when you sit down and you eat that nutritious breakfast. And at the end, there's that feeling of satisfaction. And when you set yourself a goal and you achieve it, there's that excitement of, wow, I didn't know I could do it, but I just did it. That gives me some motivation of taking another step. And then you set and achieve that, and you take another step. And my experience with being physically active, with moving, is that, oh my gosh, that is something that is just full of potential goals. It could be something like, wow, last week I walked around the block. Today my goal is to walk around 2 blocks. Or it might be something like, yesterday I was able to do 3 push-ups on my knees. Today my goal is to do 4 push-ups on my knees. Wow, I just did it. And you know what? My eventual goal is to do 5 push-ups in a plank position, not using my knees at all. And so on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis, you get that feeling of accomplishment. You're stepping outside of your comfort zone, and every time that you do that, you're moving ahead and feeling so much better about yourself. This is Will. Will lives in Southern California now. Will is a veteran, a military veteran, and he is in recovery, and he is a peer supporter as well. And that's Will's bicycle. When he got to California, when he moved there recently, and he was trying to establish a wellness and recovery plan for himself, he decided he wanted to get moving. And he happened to be at a yard sale, and he saw that bicycle. And he said, wow, a bike? I think I'd like bike riding. Good exercise, yeah. And then he saw that it was an electric bike. He thought that sounded especially good, okay? Pedal for a while, then let the power take over. Pedal for a while, and then let the power take over. So he bought the bike. But you know what? When he got home, he discovered, oh, wow, it's an electric bike, all right, but you got to have a key, and you got to have a battery, and guess what? The battery is dead, and the key did not come along with the bike. So he thought about it. I think he thought about giving up, and then he said, okay, that's it. I got to make some changes in my expectations here. So, like he says, it takes a lot of effort to get this dead weight bike up over the hills. But as I keep riding and building myself up, I can overcome those hills on this road of life. And so Will maintains accountability and gets support from others in part by posting in live time his bike rides and the goal he has in terms of miles for the day, and then his progress. And just remember, that bike is physically a lot heavier than the average person's bicycle is. But he is using this quite successfully as part of his recovery. And speaking of bikes, this is Brian. And Brian is also a veteran in recovery, and he is also a peer specialist for the VA. And you can see Brian and his bike on the left, and on the right you can only see his head, but that is Ranger, his service dog, also. And Brian has integrated being physically active as part of his recovery also. He used to feel like giving up. He felt like because he had physical things to recover from as well as emotional things. And he's found that being active really helps him with the negative self-talk. And he accomplishes physical goals. And every time he accomplishes a physical goal, he says he's found that he's able to fight once again. So that is how being active has benefited Brian. Now, Appalachian Consulting Group and DBSA have identified 5 stages of recovery. And so I want to talk just a little bit about those, and also about things that you and I can do as peers in recovery ourselves and as peer supporters at those various stages. One stage is the one that we call the impact of illness, and the person is overwhelmed by the disabling power of the illness. So they might feel as if their life is coming to an end, literally or figuratively. There may be a lot of physical pain along with the emotional pain that is happening. They may be getting a lot of medical treatment and clinical treatment, but they might not be getting messages either by the clinicians or by society in general that recovery is possible. So we have learned ourselves as peer supporters that being present in this stage is really important as mentors, as role models, as people who can say, yes, recovery is possible. It will get better. We'll be here to provide support as you go on this journey. And this also holds true, again, for somebody whose physical wellness is really interfering with the goals that they have for themselves. It seems like they can't play with their children anymore. They can't be active. They can't find clothes that fit. They don't have energy. And so, again, as peers, we can be role models and we can share that there was a time in my life when I too struggled with the side effects of the medication and the craving, the food craving. All I did was eat, and be able to share what has helped us to move on from that. Then we talk about life being limited and what makes you happy. And if you ask a person at this point, what makes you happy, oftentimes they cannot respond. They can't name anything that makes them happy because they're not feeling happy at that point in their lives. So they've given up and given in to the disabling power. And they've lost all hope for a better life. They're going through maybe the steps on a day-to-day basis. Here we have Nancy, and Nancy lost a baby in the baby's first months. And as she said, for a few years after that, she was able to keep her kids fed and clean in a home, but she was just a zombie blah for a few years. Nancy now provides family peer support for the lower Elwha tribe here in Washington State, and she also has formed a peer support group and nonprofit for other families who have lost a child. And she also recently has begun being very active at her local gym, both on the reservation and also in a nearby town. So she has found that by combining her peer support with others and working on her own physical wellness, her recovery is improving by leaps and bounds. Another stage is change is possible. So we're starting to question the disabling power. Maybe, just maybe, it might be possible to do a little bit more. But it's pretty scary to think about it. It involves taking risks and stepping outside of our comfort zone. We may have a lot of negative self-talk. We may be very fearful of failure. This is Angela. Angela and her twin sister grew up in foster care. Their first few years, they experienced a lot of physical and emotional neglect and abuse. And she went into the foster care system, and she stayed there up through age 18, which is when you age out of foster care. And statistically, the future for somebody who has spent that many years in foster care is awfully bleak. Angela has moved beyond those bleak predictions for her life. And she is Miss Cowlitz County 2017, and she is now very active in beauty pageants, and she has started a modeling career, and she is a youth peer supporter at a community-based organization and working with other youth who are struggling and facing issues such as foster care and other challenges in their lives. And Angela has also begun working on her physical fitness and wellness. And she has built herself a network of support, friends who join her in doing that. And she posts almost every day about her physical activities, and then gets lots of support from other friends as well. Then another stage is commitment to change. So the person starts challenging the disabling power, and they decide they're going to move out of their comfort zone, and they start to make some changes. This can be very scary, moving out of the comfort zone. And so as peer supporters, we can play a big role with somebody in assisting them with the negative self-talk, in taking a look at the barriers they may run into, and helping them to come up with plans for overcoming those barriers and moving beyond those barriers. This is Elizabeth and her dogs, and Elizabeth has spent time in Afghanistan with the Army Corps of Engineers. She has experienced some very significant physical health concerns, and she is also in recovery from several other sorts of issues. And when I asked Elizabeth what recovery meant to her and what being physically active has been, her response was so profoundly moving to me that I didn't do any excerpts from it. I include it in its entirety here. It's 2 slides. She says, "My daily life used to be so lonely and filled with anxiety and pain. There are still days when coping with any issue seems undoable. I have several mental health issues, severe ADHD, OCD, social anxiety, and PTSD, and find myself frequently struggling to get through a single trigger, a busy day, or a special event. It has taken a long time, many attempts, some failures, but many more successes to learn the easiest way through anything is by setting goals. Sometimes it's a very simple goal, like simply breathing, or something more complex, like a series of tiny goals, all leading to a larger accomplishment. Sometimes it's something big and really scary, like picking out a pretty red dress and going to a Christmas party. Goal setting has led to a much more fulfilled life that is filled with loving friends and family and is enjoyable. Forward steps, goals, no matter how small or how many, keep me moving toward the kind of person I can be. Fill my life with activities and people that make me happy, and make those times that are difficult fewer and smaller each time that I reach one of my goals." Elizabeth can be found right next to me most mornings at the gym. We share physical goals, numbers of kettlebell swings, numbers of push-ups, calorie rows on the rower or on the Airdyne. We're right beside each other providing each other with mutual support, with motivation, with hope, with role modeling for each other. And we have both discovered that as we have paired up in these activities, we have been able to do more as a team than we were as individuals. And then another stage we have called actions for change. And that's when the person starts moving beyond the disabling power. So they see the direction they want their life to go, and they start taking major steps to move in that direction. And this is Ramone. Ramone is also a veteran, and he's in recovery, and he is a peer supporter. And what he has discovered works for him is running. And that's when he can think, talk to himself, pray, laugh, resolve problems, and he heals emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So I want to talk about, some of the challenges of getting from here to there, from where we're at right now to where we want to be and keep going beyond that. For me, 6 years ago now, I started training at the gym, and my goal was to overcome my balance and coordination problems that were related to side effects from my medications, to have a way to cope on those days when the depression was overwhelming to me and I just wanted to isolate and stay in bed all day, to have a way to cope when I felt like I was crawling out of my skin because the agitation was so extreme. I had major social anxiety. I was terrified of being around people in settings that were not work-related. Lots of negative self-talk, many excuses. I wanted a healthy future, but I was not seeing the path. However, I then connected with the people who have become members of LiveForward, and I started on a journey of physical wellness and setting small goals. So one measure of that, an 85-pound deadlift, which at the time, at age 56, was really a good accomplishment. But I decided I wanted more than that. And so this past summer, I hit a 261-pound deadlift, and a whole lot of growth and progress and recovery that has come with it. You can see on the right-hand side, there's somebody yelling and screaming encouragement. On the left-hand side, you can just barely see an arm and a fist and a knee, and that is my coach and my peer supporter and my fellow athlete, Zach Filer, who has been huge in LiveForward. He is really the impetus for LiveForward, and he's right there cheering and supporting. It took me 6 years on this journey, but every day I found that when I came in and focused on a physical goal, I felt better mentally more and more and more. So I developed a motto, and that is, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. I want to show a video. This is Zach, who couldn't be with us today, but Zach and some other members of LiveForward are going to share what it means to them.
LiveForward started out as a peer support group in our gym. What we really did was we were getting people together once a month to tackle mental health issues, hard topics that people really weren't talking about. We brought them together into kind of a closed-off setting where they would feel comfortable getting to know each other and kind of talking about this stuff. What we found was it was a big success, and part of that, I feel, was the fact that people who were involved in it were already involved with physical training because they were members of a gym. Now, the big goal of what me and Donna are trying to accomplish with the new LiveForward program is a blending of physical education with mental health awareness. Donna's already talked about what she's going to be doing on her end of the spectrum, and I'm going to be presenting more of the stuff I'll be doing on my side. But what we really wanted you guys to start off with is some stories from people that we've worked with and how physical training has really helped them deal with their own issues and things that they have going on in their lives.
Physical training impacted my entire life. I grew up as an athlete, playing football, track, and when I grew up and graduated from college, finding a community like this really made a huge positive impact in my life, in that I had a connection with others, but it allowed me to really challenge myself and push myself every day and just have continuous goals and targets and something to work towards and for every single day.
Physical training has impacted my life since I was really young. I started playing sports at a young age, and I really loved it. And I just continued training, doing different sports. But as I got older, I got busy, life issues developed, and I kind of fell away from that. I got in really bad shape. And so it wasn't until I really began my journey in mental health recovery that I got back into training. And I found that it became a huge part of my recovery. It kind of came to be a part of my identity and my routine.
What's impacted me the most with training is the confidence that I've gained by eventually achieving goals that I never thought I would be able to do. Gives me the confidence in other areas of my life, whether it's a work challenge or a challenge in my life. I think of the challenges I've overcome in training, and I think that my other challenges are specific after that. I never imagined I was capable of doing anything like this. And every time I get through something, I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm shocked. I'm totally shocked. And I walk out of here like, I did it. And the next day I did that. And that's kind of spilled over into life. If you feel confident and you feel like, if I can do that here, and I never imagined I could do it, I can do anything in my job, and as a parent, as a spouse. It kind of just impacts everything.
It's made me think about my diet too, so it's kind of had this like a chain reaction, a holistic effect that has brought together a lot of aspects of my physical health that have then benefited my mental health in a lot of ways.
I feel that others can benefit from peer support programs in that there is something magic in mixing physical activity and friendship. Working out in a group setting, there's nothing that separates you from other people. You're all doing the same thing. You're all working towards the same goal. And you're all here to support each other. It kind of makes a camaraderie that is organic. And if you walk in every day like that, you're in a squad, it's kind of cool. I think that's the best one. Once you've been working out a while, sometimes your new records of personal best slow down. But the bond with other people you work out with is so strong that you start to get excited when you see other people succeed. And it just brings a whole new kind of positivity to your life and to your day. And similar to when I work out, I can kind of put everything to the side, and just focus on me. When I'm in a sport coaching, I can put everything aside and focus on other people and their successes and try to help them reach their goals. And I think it gives me a better perspective when I walk off the floor and take on any challenge.
I think others can learn a ton from physical education and really just being a part of any kind of athletic program. The community is a huge piece of it. Finding and surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who are going to push you to be your best.
When I am struggling with something else, it's that same peer support group that will help carry me emotionally through a challenging time, as well as push me to continue to self-care, train, and take care of my entire well-being.
My name is Nino, and I choose to live forward.
My name is Michelle, and I choose to live forward. My name is Adriana, and I choose to live forward.
My name is Wayne, and I choose to live forward. My name is Nick, and I choose to live forward.
That's our home Live Forward group. That's part of it. We have a very large group of people. Our goals with Live Forward are providing access to physical activity to those who need it most. So might be people who themselves are experiencing mental health issues, might be their caregivers, or people who don't have access to training due to finances, location, or disability. This is a picture of us doing a workout called Murph. And this is a picture of a large number of us. You might recognize some of the people. On the right, using the wheelchair, is Mino. I'm in the very back on the left. You can just barely see me. Adriana is in there somewhere. Nick is in there somewhere. Lane is in there somewhere. And as I said, some people can do just great working out on their own. This was a very challenging workout named after a member of the Army that was lost in combat. And there we are all together getting ready to do it. It works so much better when we have the support of one another. So what is it that health is looking like? Well, if the current state of being, either your physical or mental state of being, is making normal activities impossible or significantly interfering with the quality of life, then it should be addressed. So we tend to look at things on this continuum, and this is something that is taken from CrossFit, and we have adapted it not only from CrossFit, but to apply to our approach to Live Forward. So many of us are starting out on the left, the lower left, in the area of sickness, and our goal is wellness and then eventually fitness as well. So accomplishing that has taken a variety of activities. Again, in Live Forward, we're not setting goals for anybody. My coach, Zach, has never set a goal for me. Any goal has always come out of my own mouth. And we start with small goals. So as I've said before, it might be a matter of getting up and going for a walk around the block. It might be a matter of setting foot into a gym to see what it is like. In Live Forward, I think something that makes us particularly successful is the peer support and the accountability that we set up to one another. So that can be accomplished in a lot of different ways. It can be accomplished within an actual physical gym like I belong to, but it could also be something that was accomplished in a support group where people chose to set a physical movement goal or a nutrition goal. And first steps, just the very first few steps, and then turn to one another for peer support in encouraging it. I have discovered that working out with this particular group has enabled me to take off 30 pounds that were put on as a side effect of my medications. And in order to do that, I turned to a large circle of friends and peers, and every day we shared about our eating success and our movement success, what were we able to do to keep moving. And for me, I learned some nutritional skills and got some coaching on the nutritional skills, and since then have been able to maintain that sort of a nutritional plan with the support of my friends. Again, Instagram, Facebook, just chatting with one another in the morning about it. So this could take place in a peer support group, a traditional peer support group. This could take place in an online support group. This could take place in a class of some sort where relationships have been established. We talk a lot about giving hope or getting hope that recovery is possible. And one of my favorite examples of the idea that recovery is possible is asking somebody 4 minutes. Could you spend 4 minutes? I know some of the barriers for you being more active is that you're really, really busy. I understand that. But can you spend 4 minutes, just 4 minutes, moving a bit more in something that we call a Tabata? And Tabata, if you want to search and learn more about it, is spelled Tabata. And a Tabata is just a 4-minute high-intensity interval workout. But it's not even really 4 minutes. It's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. And you do that for a total of 4 minutes. And what it is that you do during the 20 seconds on is something that you choose to do that for you is physically challenging. For instance, it might be stand up and sit down for 20 seconds, rest 10, stand up, sit down, rest 10. It might be arm circling for 20 seconds and then resting 10 for a total of 4 minutes. It might be push-ups. It might be sit-ups. And maybe you and I do choose to do the same thing. For instance, maybe you and I do choose to do sit-ups, and for you, what would be strenuous and intense would be 3 sit-ups in 20 seconds. Excellent. That's great. And maybe I'm next to you, and maybe I've been doing sit-ups longer now, so I've built up more stamina and endurance. So maybe for me, it might be 6 sit-ups during the 20 seconds. Terrific. We're not having a competition to see who can do more. We're there side by side with each other to provide support and motivation and to celebrate our accomplishments. So I find that for a lot of people, if we try something like a Tabata with a movement that they choose, and maybe 4 minutes is too much, so let's go with 2 minutes. 2 minutes of 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. And in terms of being able to keep track of the time, there are terrific Tabata interval timers as apps that you can get. So you can even get them set to music if you like to move your body to music. So we work on moving along this continuum from sickness to wellness to fitness, and we do it on a step-by-step basis, and we do it with support from one another. So our philosophy is that physical activity is an important part of life, and it should be accessible to everybody, no matter their current level of fitness. This is our logo, LiveForward. Zach Filer is the leader of the support group, LiveForward. That's Zach's contact information, and that's my contact information. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
So, Donna, thank you so much, first of all. This was fantastic. So one question that did come in, and I'll actually pause here to say if you're on the webinar, thank you for being here. If you have questions, feel free to use the chat box that's in the webinar system, and feel free to type them there, and then I will ask them aloud. Right now we have one question, which is someone was looking to find out more information about LiveForward. I see the contact info here. Is there a Facebook group or a website that if people did want to find out more information they could look at, or is the best way to reach out to you and Zach?
The best way would be to reach out to Zach and me, and then we can link you up with the Facebook page. But
Perfect.
One thing we've discovered is different communities, different groups, they end up implementing this a little bit differently. And so we're available to provide support to you if you want to talk about, gee, either for me as an individual or for the group of people I hang out with, can you give me some support or ideas on how we can implement this?
Excellent. That's great. One other question is if someone is, say, intimidated to go to a gym or intimidated to kind of walk in the door, what would be your recommendation as a first step to get started?
A first step that has helped with quite a few people has been some one-on-one peer support, just starting with the person and the person choosing some movement activity goals for themselves and being with them, sharing those goals, doing them together for a while the person feels a sense of accomplishment. And after there's that building sense of accomplishment, then seeing if they're more open to walking in with the peer supporter to a gym and trying some of those same familiar activities within the gym setting.
That makes a lot of sense. That's great. Thank you. It looks like that covers the question. So thank you so much, Donna, for this awesome presentation. And thank you to all of you for your attendance and participation, and to anyone who's viewing this recording in the future. We appreciate you checking it out as well. This recording should be available in the coming days via the member portal on the peerleadershipcenter.org website. DBSA is so grateful that all of you are a part of the PLC community. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of the day. This concludes our webinar.